Hi, Michelle. How you doing? Okay, got your work up here. I just want to read through this, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at your attachment as well as the work that you have submitted. So, okay, this is what I have so far. I've created some of my sketches for the app. Oh, by the way, great start here. Good, really good start here. Let's go through this. So, obviously, you've got your sketches. Not realize how much planning is really involved with the app design. Absolutely. I mean, you really have to plan for every single click that is possible. Not only that, you have to kind of have a little bit of foresight to see, how is this going to be set up in a logical way for that it makes sense to the user. Where am I, and how do I get to where I need to be? Basically, in a navigation sense, but also in a way that it makes complete sense to the user as to why the direction that you're inducing the user to travail through your mobile app. So yes, it's extremely detail oriented, and the planning stage is yes, absolutely. The planning stage is intense. My app is a language and learning app that involves all the aspects of learning language: reading, writing, listening, speaking, and vocabulary. The app will use a combination of social learning as well as using quizzes, prompts, games, and all in one app. The problem is that learning language is hard. Finding the right sources can be difficult. Having different apps to cover different aspects of the language can be overwhelming. This app fixes that problem with one easy to use app. Okay, that's fantastic. All right, now let's go ahead and jump over to what we have. So you've got right here, you say this is a persona. This isn't actually a persona. This is a scenario. And I'll go through the difference in 1 second. But first of all, let's go ahead and jump over to your sketches. So your wireframe sketches, good start. I think that you have a pretty good start here. What I would start recommending that you do is really determine every single screen that you have. Right now, it looks like you have, besides your home screen, you have one, two, only 3 screens. So you really want to plan this out to illustrate the main functions of the app itself and illustrate each screen associated with those main functions. So remember back in week 1, we listed the 3 main functions that you want associated with your app. You definitely need to show at least those. So I would say taking this out to at least 8 to 10 screens deep. Also, it's a good idea to kind of show the different path. Okay, so where do we go from here? This is our open page. And so you have the next, you have set up your profile. So where do we go from the profile page? What are our choices there? So do we go back to the home page? Do we go from the profile page to this screen listening? You see what I'm saying? So how do we get from the profile page here to this page here? Is this the home screen? Is this now the home screen? Did you see what I'm saying? So you really want to answer all pertinent questions based on your wireframes here that the viewer, user, the potential end user may have. So I recommend really framing, sketching your wireframes out to a very high degree of accuracy in terms of what each screen represents and how to get back and forth to different screens. And like I said, I would take this at least 10 screens deep or so, just so you really have a great idea of all the possible scenarios that could confront a potential user. Okay, so the other thing we have here is this. This is a Angel Torres age 22. This is a scenario. It's not a persona. A persona is actually, it describes the actual, basically the demographics and associating those demographics with their interest in your mobile app, okay? So Steven's done a really good job establishing personas. So I'm gonna jump over here and let's go ahead and take a look at his, and these are Steven's personas, okay? So you have the 12-year-old kid, and then you have all of his attributes associated with his relationship to the need or want to use your app, and tying that in with his demographic, okay? So it's 12-year-old, middle school, only child, football practice, he's got a PS4, he loves to play games, etc., etc. So what we would do is we would take that persona and establish a scenario from that persona. Do you see what I'm saying? And again, Stephen, thank you. I'm using your work for an example because it's done so well. But anyways, here is the scenario. Note that it's in storyboard format. So the scenario is basically saying that one of these possible um, personas could go through this scenario without the app and with the app. And it describes how that scenario will help the persona in the advantages of using the app. Okay, there's one, two, I think there's two scenarios here. I would recommend including at least 3 personas and 2 scenarios. So, okay, so again, this is good for this is a scenario, but you got to set up your personas. Okay, so persona would describe her, including her relationship to the subject matter and her need and want and benefits associated with using your app. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and take a look at what is required for submission for this week. So remember from last week, now at this point, honestly, this should be in presentation format. Okay, so remember during last week we decided what format you're going to use for your clickable prototype. We also decided what format we're going to use for the process book. So this should all be within that format. And again, Stephen's process book is set up as a PDF, and you can see his presentation is already taking form. So he's already taking all of his attributes and all of his resources that he's studying and researching, and he's entering them right into his process book. Okay, so the process book is a real-time representation of everything he's been working up to this point. All right, so what I would recommend is to get your, for this Sunday's submission, I would put this in presentation format within your process book in the format that you specified during week 1. I would also include, these are what's included this week. This is what's required. You need to include the stuff from last week, which is the ideation of the problem, the target audience, the 3 main functions, and your competitors, including pros and cons. Then you want to establish personas in at least 1 scenario. I recommend establishing at least 3 personas and at least 2 scenarios. You want to create very accurate sketches of all screens for your wireframes. That's all screens, not just these 3 screens or this open screen and the profile and then this start page. You want to include all of your screens in your wireframes. Then you want to include a storyboard of the scenario. So establish a scenario based on what? Based on the persona. Use your persona in the scenario and create a storyboard determining where the user is when they're confronting and overcoming the problem using your app. Then at that point, you want to start creating your paper prototypes and photograph those. Paper prototypes are they're little models of your different screens. So what basically you use your paper prototypes for user testing, the first stages of your user testing. So you have all your screens that are drawn up in your wireframes, right? So you would cut these out. You draw all your screens and cut these out with scissors. That way you can, your preliminary user testing, you would sit with somebody across the table and you would say, okay, select, where would you go to set, here to select to establish your profile? And they would say, okay, I would go to the next. Then you would pull out a screen, this screen that you have cut out with scissors, and you would put that in front of them and you would say, okay, what would you do with this screen? And they would determine what they would do. They would put their name, their phone, their bio information. Okay, then you would establish the actual open screen and say, and then you would say, user testing and say, okay, now what do you want to do from here, here, and here? Okay, well, that makes sense, right? That's all covered in the book. By the way, don't skip the book at all, Michelle. The book, especially this book right here, this book is your bread and butter. Sorry about that. Where am I? Right here. This book right here, that's your bread and butter. This is sketching user experience. Definitely don't want to skip any of that. That's really, really important. So at that point, that's what I would recommend. Oh, I wanted to show you Stephen's wireframes too. See how each frame is really sketched out beautifully, and then each screen and every choice that the user can make is depicted in these screens. And then we would also determine how the user gets back to other screens. And that's all established during user testing. So establishing and sketching out the screens will assist in your paper prototyping. And that's what we need. We also need you to include your paper prototypes and photograph those paper prototypes for your final submission. Okay. So again, great start. But at this point, you definitely want to start your process book in presentation format, include everything from last week and this week, including ideation of the problem, target audience, three main functions of the app, competitors, establish your personas. I'd say establish 3 personas and at least 1 scenario, preferably 2. Create your wireframe sketches and then create your storyboards depicting the scenarios. Then finally, start creating your paper prototypes and photograph those so that we can start user testing here very soon. Okay, good job. Any questions at all, or if you need any clarifications, please let me know. But I would say those are the minimum requirements for your final submission for this Sunday. All right, thank you very much.